Do you trust the government to solve the housing crisis? It's committed to building 1.5 million new homes over the next Parliament. And this will be achieved by ripping up planning regulations, making it easier to build, also by building new developments on so-called grey belt, which is effectively low-quality green belt land. But there are warnings from local councils that the plan could be a disaster. Some have said they're concerned there isn't the local infrastructure to cope with new developments, and they mean things like GP places, schools, roads. We know we need more homes, but do you think the government has the answer? Wilfred, Countryside, obviously that's your manor.
I tell you what, we have to be really, really careful with this sort of policy. Before you start giving permission to build on sort of, what are they, grey belt. If you look around your cities and town centres, there are thousands and thousands of empty buildings. If you look above shops, there are thousands of accommodation that's available. And the big warning I would give is the warning of history. You're a historian, which is that, was it after the war, we had this big explosion to build houses, we built these massive concrete jungles.
No, that came later in the 60s, the
60s, yeah. And so what then happened is that we sort of realised that actually it's no good just building houses if you don't have infrastructure, if you don't have communities. And what are we doing now? We're having to pull them down.
Well, hold on. Hold on. I mean, those houses that we built in the 60s and 70s, we then gave people the right to buy. So that's where they all went.
No, I'm talking about these big towers that you have.
He makes the
infrastructure point, though, yeah.
We smashed up big cities like Glasgow, the community of the tenements. We totally underestimated what that meant to live in those tenement areas, the community that thrived there. They were just written off as slums, and you bang up the high-rises and actually decimate community. So Wilfred, as always, is on point. But I take issue with you immediately suggesting that we should just go for the grey space in urban centres, you know, the empty buildings, the cityscape that isn't already built on. Interestingly, the Conservatives, while they scrapped housing targets, maintained the 35% uptick in urban areas. And these current Labour proposals reverse that, and they target grey belts, i.e. your Wiltshires and your Devons, where you have your metropolitan farmers hanging out, pinging their braces and hoping that, you know, Jolly Rogers from the city stay away. And what's interesting is this is a levelling up, because why should it always be the city? Where I live, we've been assailed by poor planning, blocks they cannot fill, inappropriate housing and no infrastructure to back it up.
Blocks they cannot fill. We've got 1.5 million people on council houses. I mean, council houses are now prized properties that people are desperate to fill. You know, admittedly, yes, there are buildings going begging now in cities, as you know, shops,
offices, for example, that are no longer being used.
And they built blocks.
But cities is where you need.
No. They're bringing down the targets for Birmingham, for Coventry, for London. I live in Zone 2 London, near to the Black Farmer's shop, just to get another mention in there. And we've had one block's gone up already. The next one is proposed. There's no family-friendly, hardly any family-friendly accommodation. So the local school's closing, people can't afford to live there, and some of the flats...
But houses, you've got to have work. You have to... It's no good building houses that they have nowhere to go and work.
And actually, post-pandemic, we're moving out of the cities.
I want to make sure we take as many calls on this as we can, because I know we've got loads of people wanting to get in touch. Lucy's in Stockport. Do you trust the new Labour government to solve the housing crisis, Lucy?
Absolutely, definitely not.
Absolutely not.
I grew up on the same council estate as Angela Rayner. Her, of all people, should understand how people are feeling right now, because I think some of these riots are a contributing factor is how things like housing and things like that, because the gap between the haves and the have-nots is getting bigger and bigger all the time. There's no council housing in Stockport. I've got stage 4 breast cancer. I was diagnosed at 36. I'm 39 now. I've got 3 kids. We're living in a 2-bedroom flat, along with my husband. The council don't care. I'm on the 6th floor. If that lift goes, I'm stuck because I can't get up and down those stairs. But not bothered. Over the weekend, I read that Angela Rayner was going to get rid of the cap on housing for immigration. Who are these? If they do build them, who are they being given to? Are they going to be given to the British people or the people who are coming in?
OK, Lucy, when your council home was built, that whole block would have been owned and maintained by the local authority. It's been sold off bit by bit to people who can own that privately now as a right. Do you not think that's played any part in the fact that, for instance, the lift is broken and you struggle to get it maintained properly?
Nobody in this apartment owns it. It's horrible. Nobody owns it. This building is left. No, they don't even come and clean it. Okay. They don't even come and mop the floors. They're not bothered. But yet they've just built a bus station in Stockport. The council spent millions building a bus station in Stockport, whacked a load of flats on top of it, and the rent for these flats is between £1,000 and £2,000 a month. Nobody around here can afford that.
So these are council flats or housing association flats?
Council. Where I live, a council.
OK, but these are not privately owned. These are council or housing association flats.
What's key here, and what Lucy's saying, is it's got to be affordable housing. And what we've seen with our developments locally is obviously the architects, the planners, the builders, the people you need to invest in these projects. They don't want too much affordable housing because they don't make the profit margins on it. So Lucy makes a really salient point. And by the way, best of luck with your breast cancer treatment, Lucy. Yeah, Lucy, listen, we wish you the best in your situation. I'm just really interested to know how this isn't part of the answer, though. To build, if we're saying that our cities are saturated, isn't the answer to take available land, as long as the infrastructure's there to go with it, to support people and move them out?
But employment, you know, if you don't have employment, what's the point of having these houses? So that's why the cities and the towns are employing. But then if it's a government, a council development, then you have the right to insist to make sure transport is there. Whereas if it's a private development, you haven't got that ability. But
several things are going on here. One is actually the shortage of housing, and where housing is often most out of reach in terms of local wages is in the more rural areas or the market towns, which is one of the reasons why grey belts are being targeted. Lucy made the point, you also have to have infrastructure. If you do things at breakneck speed, which I agree on the one hand, you have to build quickly, you don't have the infrastructure to back it up. We've built more and more around where I live, but has the local transport service improved? We've campaigned for a lift. We've got a potential Hillsborough coming down on our local escalator, but nothing's been done to invest in it.
I really want to take more calls on this. Alan is in London. Alan, do you think you trust the Labour government to solve the housing crisis?
I trust the Labour government to a certain extent. But in my opinion, it's more the mortgage suppliers that need to be looked at. We've recently tried to buy a property in London. We had the deposit. The mortgage provider refused to give us a mortgage purely because it was above shops. So if we're talking about infrastructure being there, the mortgage lenders need to admit that and let people get the properties that we have.
I mean, what we're talking about is developments out of town on grey belt. That presumably wouldn't affect your situation. You're in London, so
we're just moving to Thamesmead, so officially a 1960s grey belt.
Well, I mean, Thamesmead is one of the biggest. That's one of the biggest social developments anywhere in the capital, isn't it? That was a classic 60s development. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're going to try and buy a house, a flat, presumably, or a house that was previously council-owned, is that right?
It's above a shop.
No, it's new. Basically, there's not a lot of that left now. It's a new development from 2020. OK, so attention, in addition to any additional building, to accessibility to the finance necessary to buy your own home. That's what you're saying? Yes, yeah, exactly.
OK, I'm going to take another call. Thank you, Alan. Kathy's in Lancashire. Kathy, do you trust Labour to sort out the housing crisis?
No, I don't. And can I just say something about the previous lady to contact her MP to get some help, even if she doesn't like them?
OK, thank you.
Because that's what was there.
Yeah.
The new houses are built, they're too small, and show houses don't have full-size furniture in them. Okay. I went to look at one with my...
This is a brilliant point. So much housing that's being built is too small. It doesn't take in the needs of modern families. 1.3 million children live in overcrowded, substandard accommodation. Our future, our children, not living in decent accommodation. I mean, there is an argument that if you are starting on the housing ladder, then typically you may be starting as an individual or a couple,
And so creating...
That's so bourgeois, isn't it? That's so, when you're in your 30s, you have a baby or two. Actually, some people get going
isn't that
earlier.
just how life progresses? Typically, not for everybody,
no,
obviously.
The middle classes. But generally, lots of people have families when they're younger than just when you're both 30 and can afford a starter flat.
Okay.
You need accommodated, if you have two or three children.
But listen, accommodation is being built based on people's present lifestyles. Yeah. Most flats now, you'll have the kitchen within the sitting room. I can remember when you had the kitchen very separate. So because people's lives are changing, the property sizes are coming down. That's just a reality. They don't have dining rooms anymore because people don't use dining rooms.
I mean, if you have to adapt your lifestyle to fit the accommodation that's available, that might be better than no home at all.
Yeah.
OK. Listen, thank you.